Commander Elias Kade stood at the entrance of the Triarch Coalition orbital station, his dark uniform sharply contrasting with his sterile silver walls. The hum of the station's propulsion systems vibrated under his feet, a low, constant reminder of the technological might he had come to witness. Around him, alien officers moved with precision, their multi-limbed forms glinting under the harsh lighting. To them, Elias was a novelty, a human representative in a galaxy that had never quite accepted humanity's presence. He felt their gaze, sharp and evaluative, yet he held himself with the quiet discipline that had earned him his rank on Earth. The tour began under the direction of Arbiter Voskrell, a massive alien whose exoskeletal armor shimmered with a bluish metallic sheen. His head, elongated and crowned with bony protrusions, tilted slightly as he spoke, projecting a voice that reverberated through the hall. "Welcome, Commander Kade. You will see the might of the Triarch Coalition, the tools that ensure no threat persists." Each word was precise, almost ceremonial, yet carried a hint of amusement, as if Elias' species were not expected to comprehend true power. Elias followed without comment, his eyes scanning the towering weaponry displayed along the walls. Plasma cannons that could reduce mountains to molten slag, antimatter lances with containment fields glowing faintly, and gravity disruptors that threatened to tear ships apart with unseen force. All of it dwarfed anything humanity had ever deployed. Yet he noted not only their strength, but also their impracticality, the extravagance designed to impress and intimate rather than serve pure function. A group of younger officers flanked the human, whispering among themselves. Elias caught snippets of speculation, questions about human anatomy, endurance, and whether a mere human could survive close to such destructive implements. He ignored them, observing the patterns, the structure, the engineering decisions that spoke of form over efficiency. Humans, he thought, valued practicality, adaptability, survival. The aliens valued spectacle. Voskrell guided them into a chamber lined with massive ranged weapons, each instrument meticulously maintained, polished to reflect the harsh overhead light. "These," the Arbiter said, gesturing broadly, "are the instruments of dominance. With them, entire worlds fall, and empires crumble before the might of the Coalition." His tone carried pride, but it also carried an expectation of awe. Elias offered none. His face remained impassive, a calm mask that masked thoughts running like currents beneath the surface. As they moved along, Elias noted the officers' reactions to his quiet observation. They anticipated gasps, questions, nervous commentary, anything that would validate their assumptions. Instead, he offered nothing, merely studied. He noticed inefficiencies, maintenance hatches that could jam, power conduits vulnerable to disruption, armor plating whose angles were more ceremonial than protective. To a casual observer, the hall was intimidating. To him, it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. The Arbiter continued, speaking of strategy, tactics, and the ceremonial importance of their arsenal. He explained how certain weapons were reserved for ritual combat, others for suppressing uprisings, some for psychological intimidation. Elias listened, nodding subtly when appropriate, yet he said nothing about his own experience in warfare, experience born not of spectacle but of necessity. The tour wound deeper into the armory, into a quieter, less ostentatious wing. The air seemed heavier here, filled with the scent of aged metal and oil rather than polished engineering. Here, melee weapons were displayed, blades of all lengths, spike-tipped clubs, and tools designed for close combat. Voskrell waved a massive arm dismissively. "These," he said, "are relics. Weapons for personal dueling, tools for situations that rarely arise." Elias slowed his pace as he approached a display case. Inside were short, simple blades, blunt in appearance, unadorned, yet perfectly balanced. They were small compared to the larger, ceremonial instruments, but something about them drew his attention. He reached a gloved hand toward the glass, eyes narrowing slightly. The hum of the station seemed to recede as he studied their design, grip, and edge. There was a familiarity here, a resonance he could not ignore. The other officers noticed the pause. Whispers rose among them, uncertain, questioning. Voskrell's voice attempted to fill the space. Commander Kade, these are tools, not toys. They are designed for lethal efficiency, yet rarely used outside ritual. Surely your species has no interest in such primitive instruments. Elias remained silent, allowing the question to hang. For the first time, the Arbiter sensed that the human might not be as naive as presumed. The calm scrutiny, the absence of awe, the lack of mockery. It was disarming. Elias' silence carried weight, an unspoken challenge. Here, in the quiet of the melee wing, the first seed of doubt had been planted among the Coalition officers. The section closes as Elias continues to study the blades, his gaze steady, his posture relaxed yet purposeful. The Hall of Weapons, once a monument to alien superiority, now feels different, a stage where the human's observation alone unsettles the audience. The path forward is unspoken, but the tension is palpable, the promise of revelation lingering just beyond the next doorway. The melee chamber was quieter than the grand halls of ranged weapons, yet it exuded a different kind of menace. Blades of every conceivable shape and length lined the walls, some elegantly curved, others jagged and spiked, all polished to a deadly gleam. The air smelled faintly of metal and oil, the scent accentuated by the subtle vibration of the station's engines. Arbiter Voskrell led the group forward, each step echoing against the high ceiling. These, Voskrell began, voice deep and resonant, are instruments of personal combat. They are reserved for engagements where distance cannot protect the wielder. A true warrior prefers the elegance of ranged dominance, but when circumstance demands, one must engage directly. His multi-jointed fingers gestured toward the displays as if to emphasize the weight of history embedded in each blade. Elias moved slowly, allowing his gaze to travel across the rows of weapons. They were deadly, yes, but far from alien to him. Short, balanced blades sat alongside spike-tipped clubs, each one a testament to the alien's obsession with ceremony over necessity. He could see where power had been wasted in decorative hilt work, where balance was sacrificed for intimidation. Humans, he knew, favored function, simplicity, and adaptability above all else. One of the younger officers, a lithe creature with 6 arms, leaned forward. Commander Kade, surely your species has little need for these primitive instruments. Your warcraft relies on firearms, energy projections, explosives. Surely blades are inconsequential? His tone was lightly mocking, confident in the superiority of his argument. Elias turned, his expression calm, unreadable. His voice was steady, almost clinical, yet it carried a weight that demanded attention. Those are kitchen knives on my planet. The room went silent. Even the hum of the station seemed to falter. A translator recalibrated frantically, rendering his words into the alien dialect. The younger officer's mandibles clicked in confusion. Voskrell chuckled at first, assuming a miscommunication or a poorly timed jest. Kitchen knives, he repeated, emphasizing the absurdity. You would compare these instruments of battle to tools of sustenance. Elias did not smile. He let the silence stretch before continuing, his words deliberate. Yes. Human kitchens contain blades sharper, lighter, and faster than any of these. They are used for preparing food, for hunting, for daily labor. When necessity demands, they are weapons. And they are everywhere. The statement caused a ripple among the alien officers. Some regarded him with disbelief, others with subtle unease. The Arbiter's laughter faltered. He had expected fear or awe, not calm authority paired with understated menace. Elias' gaze swept over the array once more. He continued, not to boast, but to explain a philosophy alien to the Coalition. Humans do not separate tools from weapons. Every object, every implement can serve a purpose. Our ancestors adapted to survive, to hunt, to defend themselves with what was at hand. Our lives depend on understanding how to turn necessity into advantage. A tall officer with armored shoulders tilted his head, mandibles clicking in curiosity. You suggest your species could use such implements effectively against trained soldiers? His question was incredulous, bordering on mockery, yet there was an undertone of hesitation. Elias' reply was quiet, measured, but laced with quiet confidence. Effectiveness is not measured by intimidation, nor by decoration. It is measured by results. Humans have survived when greater powers have failed to destroy them. We endure. We adapt. We turn what others dismiss as trivial into survival. The younger officer tried to regain control of the conversation. But surely you rely on ranged combat in modern warfare. These are not firearms, not energy lances. These are primitive. Elias tilted his head slightly, studying the officer. Distance is a preference, not a limitation. Close combat is never preferred, but humans are prepared to close it without hesitation. If you believe that these blades are simple, then you underestimate what humans can accomplish with things you consider ordinary. Voss Krell stepped closer, his armor glinting, trying to reassert dominance. Your species boasts survival through improvisation. Yet, even a novice officer could defeat a human armed with one of these. He let the sentence trail, assuming the statement was self-evident. Elias said nothing immediately. He merely let his gaze rest on the arbiter, the calm in his posture suggesting both patience and inevitability. Finally, he added, almost as an aside, "You may find that we never bring our real weapons to exhibitions." A hush settled over the chamber. The alien officers exchanged glances. The atmosphere shifted from amusement to wariness. What had begun as a tour of alien superiority now carried a latent threat, subtle yet undeniable. The humans were being observed, but they, too, were assessing, evaluating, calculating. Elias turned back toward the display. His fingers brushed the glass of the case, not to touch, only to study. Each weapon, intricate in design, was dwarfed by the simplicity and versatility he knew humanity wielded daily. The contrast was stark. The Coalition celebrated excess, ceremony, and intimidation. Humanity thrived on restraint, function, and lethal efficiency. The Arbiter's voice broke the silence, carefully controlled now. "You speak as if humanity is dangerous beyond measure. Yet I see no armies here, no displays of real force." Elias' lips curved faintly, almost imperceptibly. Danger is measured not by display, but by the ability to endure, to persist, and to turn circumstance into advantage. One does not need to show all weapons at once. The first moment you think we are harmless is the moment you underestimate us. For a long moment, the officers said nothing. The room, once a place of spectacle, now felt different. The small, unassuming blades carried a weight far beyond their size, and the human standing before them carried an authority unearned by showmanship alone. The section closes with Elias moving forward again, silent, purposeful, his eyes scanning the next corridor. The aliens followed, a newfound caution in their steps, as the first realization settled in. The human was not here to be impressed. He was here to observe and to be understood on his own terms. The silence of the melee chamber lingered, thick and tense, until Voss Krell cleared his throat. "If you insist on demonstrating such human ingenuity, perhaps a demonstration is warranted." His multi-jointed fingers traced the outline of a combat drone in the center of the room. It was no ordinary machine, heavily armored, agile, and armed with retractable blades and short-range energy projectors. To the aliens, it was designed to overwhelm even the most skilled infantry. Elias regarded the drone calmly, his dark eyes sweeping the sleek metal frame. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he observed the angles of its joints, the placement of sensors, and the faint patterns in its movement algorithms. To the alien officers, it appeared as if he were merely inspecting a museum piece, yet every measured glance betrayed the mind calculating dozens of contingencies in an instant. "Take one of the blades," Voss Krell instructed, a challenge laced in amusement. "Show us your methods, human." Elias moved toward the display, selecting a short, balanced blade. His hand gripped it naturally the way a craftsman holds a tool, not a weapon. He tested its edge with a light swipe, catching the faint reflection of the chamber lights, then flexed his fingers, assessing balance. The room held its collective breath. Alien officers leaned forward, some skeptical, others uneasy. The drone activated with a hiss, mechanical limbs moving with uncanny speed. It lunged, blades spinning. The expectation was universal. The human would falter, stumble, or at best survive a few seconds of controlled chaos. Elias did nothing of the sort. He stepped aside, a slight pivot precise and economical. He avoided the spinning blades, exploiting blind spots, timing his movements with perfect anticipation. He struck once, not to destroy, but to disable, targeting joints and actuators with minimal effort for maximum effect. The drone staggered, misfiring its energy projectors. The second attack came faster, yet Elias remained fluid. He deflected, parried, and redirected energy. His movements were unassuming, almost casual, but each motion carried lethal intent. Within moments, the machine was immobilized, a heap of sparking metal, powerless. The chamber went silent again, but this time, it was not confusion or disbelief. It was fear. The younger officers stared, mandibles clicking in nervous fascination. The arbiter's laughter had vanished. Even he had not anticipated such efficiency from a single human wielding a mere blade. Elias did not speak immediately. He let the silence stretch, allowing the magnitude of what had occurred to sink in. Then, in his calm, even tone, he explained, "Humans are endurance predators. We rely on persistence, observation, and adaptation. Strength is measured not in the first strike, but in the ability to continue when others falter. Pain is a tool, fear a resource, and every environment becomes part of the battlefield." A tall, armored officer stepped closer, mandibles twitching in tentative acknowledgement. "You suggest that even with inferior tools, your species could neutralize superior technology?" Elias nodded. "Efficiency outweighs ornamentation. Focus outweighs flash. We do not rely on overwhelming force alone. We exploit weaknesses, adapt instantly, and endure longer than any adversary expects. To underestimate a human is to guarantee failure." Voskrell's posture stiffened. The Arbiter had led tours, inspections, and demonstrations for decades, yet he felt a rare unease, an unfamiliar and uncomfortable realization that his assumption of human inferiority might be flawed. You have not even drawn your real arsenal," he said carefully. This was merely a test. Elias' response was quiet, almost conversational. A demonstration is meant to illustrate principles, not display every capability. You should always fear what you cannot see. The young officers whispered among themselves. The room, once a stage for alien intimidation, had shifted. Observation alone now carried weight. Elias had not boasted, had not threatened overtly, yet the room's dynamic had reversed. He was no longer merely a subject under scrutiny. He had become a measure, a standard the aliens were forced to consider. Elias sheathed the blade with deliberate care. The metallic click echoed in the chamber, drawing all eyes. He stepped back, posture relaxed but alert, leaving the drone disabled where it lay. "We do not escalate unless necessary. We do not reveal all at once. And we do not confuse showmanship with power." Voskrell, for the first time, allowed a subtle pause, studying the human before him. Authority emanated not from size, weaponry, or armor, but from presence and understanding. The Arbiter realized that humans, while seemingly primitive, operated on principles alien to the Coalition, principles that emphasized adaptation, endurance, and the lethal utility of simplicity. Elias turned toward the corridor leading out of the melee chamber, signaling the tour's continuation. The alien officers followed, but their steps were hesitant, measured, less confident than before. The lesson was clear. The human was a different kind of threat, one that could not be assessed by technology or spectacle alone. As they moved forward, Elias' eyes scanned the walls, the weapons, the subtle details that often escaped attention. Each step reinforced the unspoken truth. The Coalition had prepared to showcase supremacy, yet the human presence had already recalibrated their assumptions. Subtlety, patience, and efficiency, qualities humans honed by necessity, had triumphed over elaborate design and ceremonial intimidation. The section closes with Elias pausing at the doorway to the next hall. Without a word, he gestured slightly to the array of weapons behind him. "We don't bring our real weapons to tours," he said, his tone calm, almost casual, yet weighted with meaning. The aliens hesitated, exchanging glances. The demonstration had ended, but the implications lingered. The human had not only survived the test, he had redefined it. The tour concluded abruptly, a tension lingering in the corridors like a low hum. Alien officers moved with measured precision, their usual confidence tempered by a subtle unease. Conversations had dwindled to whispers, punctuated by glances toward Elias Kade, who walked calmly, unhurried, yet aware of the weight his presence carried. Even Voskrell, towering and formidable, found himself hesitating in his usual authoritative gait. A private chamber was arranged for final formalities. Voskrell faced Elias, the metallic glint of his armor catching the harsh overhead lights. "Commander Kade," he began carefully, voice restrained, "you have demonstrated efficiency, endurance, and a philosophy I do not fully comprehend. Tell me, what is the true military capacity of your species?" Elias' eyes were steady, unflinching, yet his expression remained neutral. "Humanity does not seek conquest for conquest's sake. Our strength is measured by survival, endurance, and adaptability. History has taught us that survival often requires doing what others cannot imagine. We escalate only when necessary, and we finish only when we must." Voskrell studied him, searching for subtle cues of exaggeration or threat. There were none. The calm certainty in Elias' demeanor was neither arrogance nor bluster. It was lived experience distilled into silence, observation, and action. The Arbiter realized that the human was not boasting. He was explaining reality. Elias continued, quietly but deliberately. "If you ever see humans reach for tools instead of weapons," he said, letting the word settle, "it means the weapons have already failed. We do not display power unless it is required. The first impression of harmlessness is always a tactical advantage." The room remained silent. Alien officers, previously so confident in their superiority, now considered humanity with a measure of respect tinged by apprehension. The lesson was clear. The human's power was not in the weapons displayed, but in the mind and philosophy behind them. Voskrell's voice, usually so commanding, softened, tinged with something approaching humility. "Your species is unlike any we have encountered. You are subtle, persistent, and dangerous in ways we cannot easily quantify." Elias inclined his head slightly. Danger is rarely measured by appearance. It is measured by what survives when all else fails. Humans have endured extinction-level threats because we adapt, endure, and innovate. You will never see our full capacity until necessity forces it. A junior officer stepped forward cautiously, mandibles clicking in tentative inquiry. "Commander Kade, are you suggesting that our reliance on superior technology may blind us to human capability?" Elias allowed a faint nod. "Yes. Technology is an amplifier, not a substitute for awareness. Efficiency, adaptability, and patience are far more decisive than any machine or weapon. Underestimating a human can be a fatal error. We are not superior by design. We are superior by necessity." Voskrell fell silent, the weight of the realization pressing upon him. The Arbiter had assumed command of the galaxy's most advanced armory, yet he had been unprepared for a species that thrived not on spectacle, but on subtlety, endurance, and lethal pragmatism. The human had shifted the paradigm without a single overt act of aggression. Elias straightened, preparing to depart. The calm in his posture, the quiet authority in his steps, left a lingering impression that was both unsettling and profound. "Your armory is impressive," he said, "but remember, power is not always where it appears to be. The smallest tool, in capable hands, can outweigh the grandest weapon." The Arbiter and his officers watched as the human turned and left, each footstep echoing down the polished hall. Silence followed his departure, heavy and contemplative. The melee chamber, once a symbol of intimidation and ceremonial pride, now felt different, Every blade seemed to carry a weight beyond its material, a respect born from understanding, not fear. Outside, Elias boarded his ship. As the engines roared to life, he cast a last glance at the station, his expression unreadable. The Coalition had observed a human demonstration, yet what they had truly witnessed was a revelation. Humanity did not need to show all its cards to assert its presence. The lesson lingered, unspoken but undeniable, among the alien ranks. As the ship slipped into the void, the Triarch Coalition convened in private. Officers debated what they had seen, questioning assumptions and recalibrating strategies. Voskrell, silent for the first time in his long career, considered the implications. Humans were not primitive, not naive, not weak. They were resilient, resourceful, and terrifyingly unpredictable. The story closes on a quiet note. The Armory remained unchanged, yet its perception had shifted. The weapons, once intended to awe, now served as reminders that true strength need not always be seen. The human had left without fanfare, but the echoes of his presence would endure far longer than any ceremonial display. The final image lingers, a human, calm and unassuming, leaving an alien Armory in silent command of the respect he never demanded, the fear he never provoked, and the influence he had quietly imposed.